Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to be getting into shoulders and into our posterior core with those shoulders. So working on hip drive and inverted hip drive in the shoulders. We'll get a good amount of neck mobility, hopefully get a little bit of jaw mobility work in as well. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start standing up with our staff, getting into a little bit of shoulder mobility first. So getting a nice shoulder width grip of the staff is where I want to imagine that we're bending or breaking the staff in two. I want that bend to come not just from the wrists, but also through the elbows. So feeling those elbow pits spiraling up towards the ceiling, as well as the shoulder blades packing down. Feel those shoulder blades spiraling down towards your hip pockets. We'll start with the staff down at our side, getting into our breath, taking a nice inhale breath into that crocodile breath, expanding the abdominal wall. On the inhale, exhale, drawing that navel up and in like you're trying to touch your belly button into your spine. As you start to feel that breath, on that inhale, notice how your pelvis wants to tilt forward a little bit. We're going to allow that to happen. It's going to create a little bit of a sway in that low back. On the exhale, as we draw that navel in, pelvis wants to scoop. We're going to allow that to happen. With each one, we'll go a little bit further. Inhale, allow that pelvis to move forward. Open up that bit low back. Exhale, feel that scoop. The more you scoop, you'll start to feel the glutes kind of tighten up and engage. The core will do the same. If you have some tightness and stiffness in that low back, I want to make sure we're not moving into pain. And on the next inhale, as you get that nice big sway in the back, on your exhale, drawing navel in and scooping, we're drawing the elbows up and moving them towards the ears, feeling how far back can we go without going to pain. Inhale, we're going to lightly let the arms come forward. Exhale, pulling those elbows back towards the ears. I want to keep this scoop as we pull. I don't want to let that pull take me into to that same sway back where the rib sticks out. So I want to feel scoop, rib draws down at the same time that the elbows are pulling back towards the ears. We're going to do 10, you can work up to 20 reps. While you're doing this, keep your eyes fixed on a point on the wall out in front. I want to watch out for that head craning forward and looking down. I want to try to keep our spine nice and tall. After 10, we're now going to keep those shoulders pulled back into light tension. And we're going to elevate the shoulder blades, reaching up to the ceiling. Exhale, on the exhale, inhale. On the exhale, we're reaching up. Inhale, we're drawing the shoulders back down, feeling them slide on the rib cage. Exhale as we reach. Inhale as you pull down. And on that inhale, I want to see if we can bring that inhale breath up into our chest, kind of up into this clavicular area. So exhale, push, inhale, pull. As you pull, try to keep your elbows actively straight. I don't want to pull and let those elbows bend. I want to keep them pushing at the elbows. All this movement is happening at the shoulder blades, feeling the scapula. Again, after 10 up to 20 reps. On the next one, as you push, We're going to keep those shoulders elevated high, and we're coming back to our exhale, pulling elbows back. Inhale, going forward. Now we should be able to get a little bit more range out of those elbows pulling back with the shoulder blades elevated. Again, I want to make sure that we're not forcing it. We're still exhaling and scooping, keeping those, getting the ribs drawing down. Eyes focused on that point on the wall in front of you. After 10 to 20 of those, we're going to drop the arms. We're going to move the staff to behind the body, palms facing away from the body. We're still bending the staff, but we're bending it away. So I still want those elbow pits spiraling forward. From here, nice inhale into that crocodile breath. Exhale, drawing navel to spine as we lightly lift the elbows up towards the ceiling. Inhale, let it soften. Exhale, lift. Now, as we lift, I want to continue to try to bend the staff away from the body. Now, my staff's not bending. It's pretty solid, but I want the action of that bend to take place. So I want to feel that elbow pit spiraling forward. That should open up the chest. As we spiral, notice how the chest is opening up. What I want to avoid is shoulders rotating forward as we lift. Notice how my back is rounding. So if I keep that active spiral through the elbows, it's going to pin the shoulder blades down and back, and I'm going to feel that stretch a lot more across the upper chest. And with each one, we're seeing if we can slowly squeeze a little bit more without forcing it and without going into pain. Once we get through 10 to 20, we're going to flip our palms over to the opposite direction. We're still bending the staff away from the body. I still want that spiral through the elbows. Everything else is the same. Nice inhale into the belly. Exhale, drawing navel to spine as we lift. And I still want eyes fixed on a point out in front. Again, I want to watch out for that head wanting to crane forward or look down, reaching down. I want to keep the spine nice and tall as we're moving through that nice spiral through the shoulders. We'll then bring the staff back out in front, and we're going to get the nice wide grip all the way out to the edges. From here, I want to explore how far can we come up and over. Now, if shoulders are stiff, we may only be able to go so far with this, so we'll bring it right back down to the hips, and we're seeing how far can we bring it back. This is as far as you can go. I don't want to force it. We're keeping it easy. If you're able to go all the way through without pain, then we can bring it all the way down to the hips and back up. Now, what I want to avoid on this is walking it through. If you have to take one side and then the other, then you don't have the range of motion on this. Take it up to the point where if you feel like it gets stuck, and bring it right back forward. We'll work slowly over time. Your shoulders will give you more and more range if you work on this slowly and you don't force it. Definitely do not want to move into pain through this range of motion. Doing so will cause the body to take that movement away from you if you force it. Good. We'll go ahead and put the staff down to the floor. And we're going to come down to hands and knees, getting into our quadruped position. Spreading the fingers as wide as you can, grounding palms to the floor, extending the elbows actively. I want to go ahead and have the toes tucked underneath as well. We're going to get into our wrists first. I want to do some light wrist mobility. So on our inhale, we're letting our body rock our hips back to our heels. On the exhale, we're rocking forward, keeping the palms grounded, loading into the wrists. Again, I don't want to force it. Inhale as we rock back. Exhale as we rock forward. This is a great place to notice, how does your right wrist feel compared to the left wrist? Is one side a little tighter, a little stiffer? Is it painful? If it's painful, then I want to back off. I do not want to push into pain. Next, we're going to turn fingers out to the side. We're going to get into our side-to-side glide. Moving back and forth. I like getting into that push-pull effect with the palm. So I'm pushing through one palm as I'm pulling the other palm. The more active you are with your palms pushing and pulling through the floor, the more active you're going to feel your shoulder blades sliding and gliding along the rib cage. I want to feel that shoulder blade move with the rib along the ribs at the same time that we're getting into some nice juicy stretch and mobility at the wrists and the forearms. And again, notice the difference right side compared to the left side. Next, we're turning fingers all the way back to the knees. Now, on this one, the closer we are to the knees, the less intense the stretch is going to be. The further out we come, the more intense. I do not want this to be intense. I want it to be light. So keep them close to start with. Palms are grounded to the floor. We're now inhaling as we rock forward and exhaling as we lightly sink our hips to the heels, trying to keep the palms grounded to the floor. This should get a nice stretch through the forearms. Again, I want to make sure that we are not pushing into pain, and this is not a massively intensive stretch. It should be light, it should feel good, it should feel juicy. We're then going to flip the palms over onto the back side of the palms. At this point, we're letting the elbows bend a little bit. I want to keep the back of the palms grounded to the floor. We're going to push into the floor, extending the elbows. I want to see how much can we extend those elbows, pushing down without pain on the wrists. And do we feel a stretch at the elbows? We'll inhale as we let the elbows soften, exhale as we extend. If you're not able to get full extension, then this is where that juicy stretch in the elbows is what we're doing. That's what I want to work with. I want to see if we can start to get a little bit more extension, pushing into the floor as we can. If you're able to get those elbows fully extended, where you can feel them pretty much lock out and there's no stretch at all, then we can get into a little bit of rocking back, hips to heels. Again, keeping it light, not forceful. We're not going very far, especially if there's some tension and stretch at the wrist, so I don't want to force it. And then we can come off the wrists, we can roll them out just a little bit. We're going to do one more wrist mobility, and then we're going to get into a little bit of foot mobility. So for the last part of the wrist, we're coming back to grounding palms, spread fingers wide, and we're going to get into our arm spirals. So palms are grounded, they are not sliding around on the floor. I want to see how far can we spiral the elbow pits forward, and then how far can we spiral the elbow pits back towards the feet. As we spiral the elbow pits forward, notice that connection to the shoulder blades. As the elbow pits spiral forward, the shoulder blades are actually spiraling back and down towards the hips, that packed shoulder. As the elbow pits spiral internal to where they start to turn back towards your feet, the shoulder blades can roll up towards your ears a little bit. Kind of feel those shoulder blades moving and spiraling with the elbow pits. This is a great connection to work with, building that connection between the hands and the shoulder blades to the rib cage. This is how our shoulders, our shoulder blades connect into our core in order to make us stronger for lifting and carrying things with our arms. Good. Again, we'll come off the wrists for a moment, roll them out. We will be spending a decent amount of time, especially as we get further into the session, on our wrists. So if the wrists need a break, you're welcome to get off of them, take some relief before coming back to them. I don't want to overload the wrists. Coming back into our quadruped, now we are tucking the toes deep. I want to get into that big toe on both sides. Tuck that big toe in. Inhale as we rock forward, and now we're exhaling as we rock hips to heels. And now I really want to feel the weight of the hips stretch into that big toe joint. Can you feel the big toe joint get some stretch? Can you feel it into the arch of the foot? Inhale, we're rocking forward. Exhale, we're sinking hips to heels. What we'll add to this a little bit is if you think about your tailbone. Imagine you have a tail and you're trying to stick that tail up towards the ceiling. You're trying to point it upwards as you rock back, as opposed to allowing it to scoop. I want to feel that tail sticking up. It's going to give you a little bit of a sway in the low back. That should get you a little bit deeper mobility into that big toe. Nice and slow. I want to move with the speed of our breath, especially if it feels tighter, more restricted, or it's a little sensitive on one side or both sides. Next, we're going to let those heels roll out as far as they can, and we're going to get tucked all the way out to that pinky toe. Everything else is the same. Nice inhale as we rock forward. Exhale as we feel the weight of our hips sink to our heels. As we're rocking back, see if you can turn that tailbone up to the ceiling. See if that adds a little bit more deeper stretch or mobility into that lateral arch of the foot, into those toes all the way out to the pinky toe. On the next one, as we sink back, I want to get to a point of light tension, not heavy tension. This is not maximum tension, but we're kind of staying in the depths of it. From here, we're going to do windshield wipers with our heels. Rolling the heels from the pinky toe all the way to the big toe, like you're trying to touch the heels together, and then rolling it back out to the pinky toes. Going back and forth, slowly and smoothly. This is a great place to notice the difference in that right big toe and left big toe, especially as you're rolling your heels back towards one another. Does one side feel different than the other? Is it more sensitive? Is it tighter, more restricted? Is it a little bit painful? If it's painful, then we need to back off. But that's also really important assessment, and that's something we want to work on. Now we're going to go ahead and untuck the toes. We're going to do some light rock back, feeling into the front of the ankle space. We're also feeling into our knees. How close are you able to get your hips to your heels? Inhale, we're coming all the way forward. Exhale, nice slow rock back. Again, on this, I want to continue to turn that tail up to the ceiling as we're sinking back hips to heels. Inhale as we come forward. If you're able to get your hips all the way to your heels, then we can slowly start to shift our weight onto our heels. I want to make sure this is not painful on the knees or on the ankles. And then we're going to rock all the way back forward and then rock all the way back. This is a good place to kind of notice, how does that front of the ankles feel? Does one ankle stay off the floor and the other one able to touch? Or are they both a little elevated off the floor? This is an area where we want to work on some light mobility without forcing it. So if you feel tightness or tension or an inability to get that ankle to flatten out, it's a good place to kind of take a note of that. Let me know in a consultation. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and shift into our Shinbox position. And I want to start by just kind of assessing both sides of our Shinbox. So I'm getting on my right side Shinbox first today because I'm feeling my left hip is tight. So getting into position, hand comes down outside of the hip, but I really want to work to see how tall can I get in my spine. Can I keep this front knee down as opposed to its rest sitting up? To get it down, it means I need to shift my weight over this hip. How does this side feel? And then we're going to very slowly windshield wiper transition over to the other side. Again, same position, grounded palm, sitting as tall, lifting the spine up to the ceiling. How does this side feel? Does one side feel tighter than the other? Does one side feel more difficult to sit upright than the other? My left side feels a lot easier. My right side, coming back to it, is a lot harder. I feel my body wants to lean. It's a lot harder to stay upright. So whichever side is the tighter side is the side that we're going to start on today. So I'm on my right side Shinbox, my right knee is forward, my right hand is grounded to the floor right outside the hip. We're going to spiral that elbow pit out and away. Feel that shoulder blade pack down, getting tall in the spine. We're going to focus on that back hip. So my weight is forward, my knee is forward. I'm on my right hip more than I am on my left hip. My left hip is off the ground. I want it to be off the ground. I want to shift so that it is off the ground because now I have range that I can reach to the floor in order to mobilize this hip. So on our inhale, we're going to reach that hip to the floor without shifting our weight. On our exhale, we're lifting that hip. We're reaching it forward, and we're taking that tailbone and as if we're trying to scooping our sacrum, scooping that pelvis forward like we're trying to move our tailbone forward. Inhale, we're reaching it back. We're untucking and we're seeing, can we touch the floor with that hip? Exhale, reaches forward and scoops at the same time. Notice how far does that hip travel? As you're reaching back, making sure that we're not rocking back and losing contact with the front knee. We'll keep that knee down, even if that back hip does not touch the floor. So this hip is tight on me, especially through this anterior compartment, the TFL area. And I am not quite able to touch the floor just yet. I'm getting a little closer after doing a good number of reps. And this is loosening up after a few reps. So we're going to do 5 up to 10 reps. And then we'll go ahead and windshield wiper slowly across. Notice how my hands are on the ground. I'm not trying to do this with my hands off the ground. As I come to the other side, grounded palm, spiraled elbow, packed shoulder, tall spine. Again, weight is shifted more forward. So that back hip should be off the ground to start with, so that we can now reach for the ground. As we inhale, exhale, we're lifting it up, reaching it forward, and scooping, trying to move that tailbone forward. Inhale, seeing, can we touch the floor? Exhale, reach and scoop. So my right hip is able to lightly touch the floor on that inhale. So again, that's an imbalance in the hips. It's one that I'm used to. Again, my hips are out of balance largely due to 5 surgeries on my right knee. Once we get 5 to 10 reps, again, we're going to slowly windshield wiper all the way across to the other side. We're going to do the same thing for 5 reps, and then we're going to add our reach and rotation to it. So grounded palm, spiraled elbow, packed shoulder, tall spine. Inhale, drop that hip, reaching it to the floor. Exhale, lift and scoop. Generally, the second time coming to a movement, especially once you've gone back and forth and you've done it on both sides, you should have a little bit more mobility available. I'm still not quite touching the floor, but I'm a little bit closer and I have more range coming forward. This feels less tight than it did a moment ago. Once we get to 5, as we exhale and scoop, now we're imagining we got a piece of bread and I want to reach straight through my knee as if I'm sharing some bread with somebody right to my side. Inhale, bringing it all the way back, reaching that hip to the floor. Exhale, lift, scoop, and share some bread. As we're sharing that bread, we can, palms are spread, fingers are spread wide. We can extend that elbow fully and spiral that palm up to the ceiling. As you reach, inhale, bring it all the way in. And with each one, we're seeing if we can get a little bit more rotation through the low back. Can we get a little bit further with our fingertips? Can I get some extended further out from that back knee out to fingertips? Want to get into this without forcing it and without going into pain. And then we'll slowly Shinbox to the other side and do the same thing. Again, grounded palm, spiraled elbow, packed shoulder. Starting with just 5 of our inhale, letting that hip reach. Exhale, scoop. Again, notice if this side feels a little easier coming to it the second time around. This should be the easier side in general because we started on the tighter side. But I'm feeling a lot more ease of movement on this side than a little bit ago. On the 5th one, as we inhale, exhale, scoop, we're holding that scoop and we're sharing that bread. Nice reach with rotation, spreading fingers, extending the elbow and spiraling the palm up to the ceiling. Inhale as we come all the way back, reaching that back hip to the floor. Exhale, scoop, lock that hip in and reach. I don't want my reach to take away from the hip. I want it to add to the hip. So as I get that nice scoop, locking that hip in, I want to keep it actively scooping as we reach and rotate. That should draw that stretch up into the obliques and then adds to how much we feel that rotational stretch in the low back, getting up into the shoulders a little bit. Good. And we're going to bring it slowly all the way back across again. Now we're going to get into our folds. So with the folds, I want shoulders square with shin to start with, just for the first 5 reps. After that, we don't need to keep the shins and the shoulders square. But to start with, for assessment purposes, I like to keep this even. Shoulders and shin are square together. Hands are going to be square with the shoulders. So nice inhale, allowing that back hip to reach to the floor. Exhale, actively scooping. Feel that stretch on the front of that back hip. And then reaching both hands evenly. I don't want one hand going further than the other because that means we've lost that square shoulders. So both hands reach evenly. Inhale, we're bringing it all the way back up, allowing that back hip to reach to the floor. Exhale, scoop forward, and nice slow reach. With each one, we're seeing if we can reach a little bit further. We'll just do 5 of these to start, and then we're going to slowly transition over to the other side and do the exact same thing. So again, shin, shoulders, nice and square. Inhale, allowing that back hip to drop to the floor. Exhale, actively scoop forward, reaching both hands evenly. How does this feel on this side compared to the other side? This is a really big assessment point. Again, we started on the tighter side, so this side should feel a little bit easier than the other side. It might not. You might find that there is tightness on one side in certain patterns, such as the hips, the scoop of the hip. And then there's patterns on the other side that are tight, such as this, getting into that posterior glute space. Once we've done 5 on each side, now we're going to start going back and forth. Nice slow Shinbox across. Scoop the tailbone, that pelvis forward as we fold. I'm now less concerned about maintaining square shoulders with my shin. We just get to explore a little bit. Inhale brings it all the way up, and we're going back to the other side. This is where I want to get a good 10 reps, up to 20 reps on each side. Going slow and methodical with our breath. I want to think about just getting some good, smooth grooving into the joint spaces, not forcing things. We're coating those hip joints with synovial fluid. We're letting our nervous system know that this is safe and not painful. Once you've gotten 3 to 5 reps side to side, we're then going to start to open up our Shinbox, which I'll do when I get to the other side. So as we get back to our starting side, we can now let that back knee slide open a little bit. We're making that Shinbox a little bit wider, still getting into that nice fold going as far as we comfortably can, not painfully. When we come back up, we can shorten that shin box, go to the other side, and then same thing. Let that back knee slide open a little bit. Feel that nice fold. Continue to have some awareness of how does this feel different on the right side compared to the left side. Is one side tighter in certain areas than the other side? Do you feel it more in the front hip? Do you feel it more in the back hip, or do you feel it in your low back? Maybe you feel it in your shoulders. And with each one, we're slowly opening up that back hip a little bit more, sliding it open more and more. The more you open that hip up, the more you're going to feel different layers of mobility stretch in that back hip. You might find that one hip allows you to open up a lot more than the other one does. Again, that's a very important and useful assessment point. We're going to continue to open up until we get more and more closer to what we would consider a yoga class pigeon pose. Although I'm not concerned with getting into that end range pose, especially if it's tight and restricted and painful. So we're only moving as far as we can without going into pain. And again, noticing the differences in tightness and tension in one hip compared to the other. Good. All right. So now we're going to move to our back. Legs are going to start out straight. We're going to bend one knee, putting one foot flat to the floor, and then moving that foot out to about 45 degrees from the midline of the body. From here, I want to make sure that the knee is directly over the heel. We're going to work on some glute activation. So we got to make sure that we have a good grounded foot. I want to think of a tripod. Got to have contact through the ball of the big toe, through the ball of the pinky toe, and the heel. So if we push more through the ball of the big toe, that pinky toe will lift up. The knee will turn in and will be on a bipod and not on a tripod. If we push too much to the outside, the knee is going to track out. It's going to lift the big toe up. So I want to make sure that knee is directly over the heel and we have even pressure. Ball of the foot, big toe, ball of the pinky toe, and heel evenly grounded to the floor. From here, getting a nice inhale into our crocodile breath. And as we exhale, we're pressing only through the grounded foot. You've got my right foot grounded, so I'm pressing only through that right foot, and I want to feel my right hip scooping up to the ceiling, similar to what we did in that Shinbox. So I'm getting my hip bone off the floor and trying to scoop the tailbone like I'm trying to touch the ceiling with it. The more I'm able to do that, I should feel some light mobility stretch to the front of the hip, and I want to start to feel the contraction in the glute. Inhale, we're letting that hip all the way back to the floor. Exhale, driving through that foot and scooping. Now, as we're doing this, the opposite leg should be completely relaxed. I don't want to have pressure pushing through that opposite heel. If you feel that opposite glute getting tight, it means that you are using that leg to assist. And I want to shut that off. So if you catch that happening, you can kind of shake the leg and let it relax, only feeling pressure through one side. As I press through that opposite hip lifts, I'm rolling over onto the relaxed hip. The relaxed hip stays on the ground. It should not be off the ground. And with each one, let's see if as we scoop, can you feel more and more contraction? Can you drive through the floor, scooping up, and feel that glute tightening up more and more? I want to get a good 10 solid reps in that glute, feeling that activation in the glute. I'm not trying to intentionally squeeze the glute. I'm trying to reach my tailbone up to the ceiling by pushing down into the floor. And if I'm doing those things, that glute will automatically tighten up and contract. So I want to do those things more in order to get more contraction out of the glute. Once we got 10, we're going to bring that leg down, switch to the other leg. Bring that opposite foot up and then move it 45 degrees from the midline of the body. Knee is directly over the heel. Finding that good tripod connection through the floor. Nice inhale into our crocodile breath. Exhale, drawing navel into spine as we drive through that tripod and scoop the tailbone up to the ceiling. Inhale lets it back down. Exhale lifts and scoops. And with each one, we're going to try to get a little bit more scoop at that top point. Now notice if this side feels difficult or different than the other side. Again, I want to make sure that opposite leg is completely relaxed. The opposite hip should be resting on the floor. We are rolling on top of it. Hips should be, one hip is rolling over the other hip, but we're keeping that knee directly over the heel. Now this hip for me is tighter. It is a lot harder to get into that full scoop, which is hip extension, which is kind of taken away a little bit of how much I'm able to feel that glute tightening and contracting. Although I'm now into my 5th or so rep, I'm starting to get a little bit more. So with each one, we're trying to scoop, get that maximum scoop, that maximum drive through the tripod of the feet. Can you start to feel more tension and tightening in that glute? Once we've done 10 of those on both sides, we're going to go ahead and bring both feet flat to the floor, hip width apart. I want to keep both feet are flat. I want to keep the nice tripod connection to our feet. Knees should be tracking over ankles and heels. From here, we're going to get back into our breath. Inhale into that belly. But we're going to let the pelvis tilt forward, so it's lifting the belly up to the ceiling and we get this big sway in our low back. There should be some space between the back and the floor. And then on the exhale, I want to feel that belly as if it's your thumb. Belly is pushing into the spine, like it's pushing your spine into the floor. Feel that pelvis scoop just a little bit from that exhale. And then nice inhale. Lifts the belly button up to the ceiling, pelvis tilts forward, big sway in the back. We'll get a good 5 slow breaths with each inhale. See if you can feel that belly lifting a little higher, getting a little bit more sway in the back without going into pinch or pain. And then on the exhale, can you feel that belly button pushing down more into your spine, pushing your spine into the floor? And on the next one, as we exhale, we're now going to peel the sacrum and the spine off the floor. So as we exhale, scoop, we're going to continue to scoop, and we're going to turn that tailbone up to the ceiling to peel the sacrum off the floor. And I want to see if we can feel each vertebrae move, get lifted off the floor one at a time. So as the sacrum comes up, L5 is on the floor, and then we continue to scoop. The L5 comes up, and we still feel that L4, and so on as we move up. We're continuing to scoop the tailbone up until we get into that stretch in the front of the hips and feeling that tightening and contraction in the glutes. And then on our inhale, we're going to bring it back down one vertebrae at a time. See if you can touch each vertebrae to the floor, moving down the spine till we get to the sacrum. That inhale lifts the belly, big sway in the back. Exhale pins the belly through the vertebrae into the floor and then peels the sacrum and each vertebrae one at a time. Going nice and slow. Kind of notice your shoulders and your neck, especially as you're lifting up. I want to keep shoulders as soft and relaxed as possible. So if you notice tension in the shoulders, as you exhale, see if you can allow that tension to melt. With each lift, at the very top, actively scoop a little higher. It's like you're trying to send that tailbone up to the ceiling. Can you get more mobility stretch through the front of the hip? Can you start to feel more contraction in the glute? And on the next one, as we exhale and lift, once we get to the top, we're going to stay at the top. And now we're going to bring in that same breath and pelvic tilt that we did when our hips were on the floor. Nice inhale into the belly, lifting the belly, pelvis tilts forward. Exhale, drawing that navel in and scoop. I want to see if we can keep the hips at the same level. I don't want to let the hips drop on the inhale. We're just letting them turn towards the ceiling, and then exhale, draw the navel in and scoop. And with each exhale, see if you can scoop a little bit more. Once we get to about 6, maybe 8 reps, we should start to really feel those glutes lighting up on fire, getting that nice active contraction. And then we can slowly bring the hips back down to the floor. And then we're going to change positions and come up to our inverted position. So getting into an inverted sit, hands are coming down at or slightly behind the hips. Palms are grounded to the floor. And we're going to start with, do some elbow spirals, similar to what we did when we were in quadruped. So again, paying attention to those elbow pits. Palms are grounded, so the hands are not sliding around. We're going to spiral those elbow pits out and away, and then we're going to let them spiral in towards the body. And again, I want to notice that relationship between the elbows and the shoulder blades. As we spiral the elbow pits out and away, notice how the shoulder blades start to drop down and back, and we can push down into the floor and get some lift through the sternum, through the chest, getting nice and tall in the spine. And as the elbow pits spiral in, the shoulders are rounding, getting that rounded upper back. Shoulders can reach up towards the ears. Inhale as we spiral out. Exhale as we spiral in, and you feel those shoulders lifting to the ears. We can also add in our pelvis. So as we inhale, spiraling out, the pelvis is tilting forward. This is where we get into that little bit of sway in the low back. As we exhale, spiraling elbows in, we're drawing the navel in and scooping the pelvis. So we're getting that rounded low back with the upper back. And you might be able to feel a nice, juicy stretch, low back up into the shoulders. And then inhale as you drive down through the palms, spiraling out. See if you can feel that nice stretch across the upper chest. On your next inhale, as you get tall, we're going to stay tall. At this point, you can stay inverted with your feet in front, or if it's more comfortable, you can get into a cross-leg sit. But I want to stay actively pressing down, actively spiraling out. Nice, tall, open chest. And we're going to get into a little bit of neck mobility. And I want to do some neck mobility with a little bit of focus into the jaw. So we'll start by checking blind spots. So nice inhale when we're at center. We're exhaling as we slowly look over the right shoulder. And then inhaling as we come back to center. And exhaling as we look over the left shoulder. Notice if one side is a little tighter in the neck than the other. Right now, my right side is easier. Left side is a little bit tighter. And as we're doing this, I now want to kind of play a little bit with jaw. So as I'm reaching and rotating, we can open the jaw big, getting a big stretch in the jaw while we're in that stretch in the neck. We can also do some lateral glide of the jaw, reaching it side to side. You may notice that adding in the jaw mobility is different on the right when you're looking over your right shoulder compared to when you're looking over your left shoulder. That might show some relationships between clenching of the jaw related to movement going through the neck, going into that shoulder. It might be that you tend to brace grit your teeth when using that shoulder, or it could be something related into your gait all the way down into your feet. So noticing jaw relationship to neck can be a very useful assessment point. So my right direction is easy, and I don't feel a whole lot related to the jaw. Left side is tighter. Not so much on that particular movement. Jaw seems to be okay. So next we're going to get into our lateral tilt and lift. So I'm lightly tilting my ear towards my shoulder, and then opposite ear, I'm lifting that ear like I'm trying to touch the ceiling. I'm also continuing to ground and press down into the floor with that same side hand. Inhale back to center, exhale to the other side. Light tilt and lift as pressing down into the floor. We're getting into the muscles on the side, front and side of the neck. So notice, how does one side feel compared to the other? Again, left side is noticeably tighter. And we can then start to add in that jaw mobility as well. So as you reach, just play a little bit with moving the jaw. Does that add tension to what you're feeling in the neck? Not so much on the right side for me. I feel something there on the left side as I open up especially. It adds into that tension. So I have some relationship to this particular pattern going into the neck related to the jaw. So again, useful information. Ooh, especially with lateral glide moving to the left on that left side. And if you're feeling tightness and tension in these areas, that's a sign that's limited. Those are limits in mobility. So those are areas that I want to move into more frequently, non-forcefully, non-painfully, but more frequency. I need more reps, and I need more reps throughout the day. So movements here where you're going, oh man, that's so much tighter, that's going to be something that we want to move into more of. And something important when we find a tension pattern, it's not just tight on one side. We have to do the same amount of work on the opposite side as well, even if the other opposite side does not have the same symptoms. If we only move through one side, we might be exacerbating the problem. So I want to make sure we match our reps back and forth. We have to work the full pendulum of the movement, not just the one side that's tight. So the side that's tight tells us the whole pattern is off, and we got to work the whole pattern. All right. Let's go ahead and get onto our back. We're going to make our nice big C shapes with our hands, placing the thumbs into that low back space, index fingers wrapping around to the front, to the abdominals. Hands are below the rib cage and above the hip bone in that nice meaty section of the abdominal wall. Feet are nice and comfortably flat to the floor. And we're going to get into that crocodile breath. So allow your hands to clench down a little bit to create resistance so that when you inhale, you can feel that balloon of the abdominal wall inflating, pushing into the thumbs in the low back and the lower back, index fingers in the front and out through the sides into the palms. On the exhale, draw that navel all the way down and in. Full exhale. See if you can feel that belly button. Push your spine to the floor. And then inhale. Nice big inflation of that balloon. With each one, see if you can inflate the balloon a little bit bigger. As you inhale, inflating that balloon, notice the tension in your shoulders and your neck. And as you exhale, allow the shoulders and the neck to soften and relax. Navel draws to the spine, shoulders soften. Tension releases to the floor. Inhale, fills up that crocodile breath, fills up that balloon. We can relax our arms, let the palms turn up towards the ceiling so that the shoulders can drop to the floor a little bit more. Continuing to breathe into that balloon of the abdominal wall. But now we're also going to let that breath move up into the rib cage. Same idea, feeling it expand like a balloon in all directions, lifting up to the front, out through the sides, and into the upper back. And then on the exhale, letting any tension in the body just release to the floor. Inhale into tension. Exhale, allowing that tension to melt. Take a few more nice, slow, cleansing breaths. Filling up that wall, that balloon, and then on that exhale, continue to feel all that tension melt away. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes very slowly, sit back up, take your time, make sure you're not dizzy or lightheaded before you come to a, fully sit or stand up.